You're watching the latest news from financialmirror.tv. Leaders of the world's leading economies confronted a financial system in shambles on Friday as they gathered in Washington with panic selling in the stock markets, credit frozen solid and the world teetering on recession. Stocks in London took their worst beating, dropping to their lowest level in 5 years, while Asian markets tumbled and crude oil fell to below $80 a barrel. G7 and G20 officials meet in Washington over the weekend amid plunging shares, bank bailouts and interest rate cuts that failed to get funds flowing again. There was little sign that Wall Street would stop the bleeding on Friday after the Dow fell 7% on Thursday, extending its losses over 6 trading sessions to 20%. A rout on equity markets in Asia and Europe saw bourses in Iceland, Russia, Austria, Indonesia, Romania and Ukraine close. In a bid to unfreeze bank lending, the US government is thinking of guaranteeing billions of dollars of bank debt and temporarily insuring all US bank deposits. Apart from Wednesday's joint rate cut by the world's leading central banks, countries have been acting alone, with Spain announcing it would buy up to 50 billion euros of investment-grade bank debt to kickstart lending. With banks desperate to protect capital, the interbank cost of borrowing dollars remained high. Rates for 3-month interbank dollar loans, what banks charge each other to borrow, rose again on Friday. The IMF said it was ready to lend to countries hit by the credit crunch and activated an emergency financing mechanism first used in the 1990s Asia crisis. Japan said it would propose at the G7 meeting that Iceland be helped via the IMF, after the North Atlantic nation took control of its largest banks and halted all trade on its stock market to avoid national bankruptcy. International investors counted the cost of their involvement with Iceland on Friday after a meltdown in its banking system turned the country from a popular financial player to a pauper in just a few days. A team of UK Treasury officials headed to Reykjavik to discuss how to deal with an estimated £1 billion of British deposits trapped in the collapsed banks, with Prime Minister Brown blaming the Icelandic authorities. Austria's Erste Group Bank said it had €300 million exposure to Icelandic banks, and the cooperative Raiffeisen said it holds Icelandic bank debt but declined to say how much, while Finnish Bank's total Icelandic bank exposure was €210 million. The government has seized control of 3 of Iceland's biggest banks, Kaupthing, Landsbanki and Glitnir, and halted all trade on the stock market as the country fell victim to the financial crisis sweeping the world. Iceland will also start negotiations with Russia on Tuesday to secure a €4 billion loan. Great scenery and wildlife, but financial situation in need of repair. Collect in person. Iceland, which is going cap in hand to Russia for a $5.5 billion loan to bail out its failed banks, was offered for sale as a wholesale lot on eBay on Friday. Bidding started at 99 pence, but had reached £10 million by mid-morning on Friday. Globally renowned singer Björk was not included in the sale, according to the notice, but there were nonetheless 26 anonymous bidders and 84 bids. The notice read, "Located in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge in the North Atlantic Ocean, Iceland will provide the winning bidder with a habitable environment, Icelandic horses, and admittedly a somewhat sketchy financial situation." Bidders' questions included, "Do you offer volcano earthquake insurance?" Or, "Is it possible that my payment will be frozen?" And, "Will you accept cash on delivery as a form of payment?" Russia's Rosevrobank, a mid-sized lender, has asked clients to pay back their mortgages right away rather than risk the prospect of real estate prices falling 30%. With the credit crunch showing no signs of abating, many Russian companies have been taking desperate measures to raise cash. But borrowers would be better off paying back their mortgages now, as their financial well-being could quickly deteriorate given the present state of the economy. Rosevrobank's chairman, Ilya Brodsky, said that dropping property values are eating away at the value of the mortgage loan's collateral, which is usually the property itself. Several Russian banks have already frozen or suspended their mortgage lending operations, as a growing chorus of analysts predict that a bubble has formed in Moscow's housing market, and sooner or later it will burst. In a recent note to investors, Moscow brokerage UniCredit compared the housing market in Russia with that of the United States, where soaring prices and risky lending have led to a collapse that infected the wider global economy. Oil fell to a 1-year low of just under $80 a barrel on Friday, depressed by expectations global demand growth will shrink if the credit crisis pushes the world economy into recession. Economic weakness has cut forecasts for world oil demand growth for 2008 to its lowest rate since 1993, as prices have dropped more than 40% from a peak of $147 in July. OPEC has called an emergency meeting in Vienna on November 18th to discuss the impact of the global financial crisis on the oil market. Investors who earlier this year piled into oil and other commodities as a hedge against inflation and the weak dollar now want safety. But gold, a traditional safe haven, jumped more than 2% on Friday to a two-month high of $931 an ounce. The bullish Chinese art market will likely come under increasing strain in the coming months amid the bleak global economic outlook, according to dealers in Hong Kong. The twice-yearly Asian art sales in the spring and autumn are attracting the world's top dealers and collectors to the city, which is now considered the world's third largest art auction hub after London and New York. Global auction house Sotheby's kicked off its autumn sales this week with a trove of Asian art up for grabs, including Chinese ceramics and paintings, rare king treasures, Southeast Asian artwork, jewelry and watches. But demand is waning amid the global turmoil, with prices set to cool after the sustained bull run. Sotheby's shares have dropped 22% in the past 3 months and 61% over the past 12 months. The auctioneer's stellar sale of works by British artist Damien Hirst last month defied the economic blues in raking in $198 million, with strong buying by Russians and Europeans. Thank you for watching FinancialMirror.tv and have a nice weekend.